Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews video. Today we are looking at the second of the new Battletomes out for Age of Sigmar today, Orruk Warclans. So yeah, we've been really excited about the third edition of Age of Sigmar and super keen to get our hands on the new Battletomes to see what changes have been made for the armies, in particular the two forces out of the Dominion box as well. And following the pattern that 40k took last year, both the Stormcast Eternals and the Orruk Warclans are out on the same day. Both up for pre-order today and out next weekend. So massive thanks to Games Workshop for sending us these books a little bit early to have a look at and review. We've got the video of the Stormcast up here on YouTube, and over on spruesandbrews.com I've got a full in-depth review of both of the books. But yeah, in this video I want to take a look at the new Battletome, see what changes have been made, see what cool new stuff has been added, and have a look at some of those new Warscrolls. So jumping in, as ever, it's a really nice book filled with lore and some awesome artwork. If you're an existing Orruk Warclans player, well, you've had a couple of Battletomes at this point. Again, the team seems to be moving more to consolidating factions under a single book than the trend that we saw at the start of the game, where factions were split up into smaller factions. And as cool as that was to kind of give each of them their own individual theme, in practice it really just meant that you didn't have a lot of the customization and options and essentially fun to build different lists that you have with the current books now. So I do wonder if these kind of books going forward is something that we'll see. Like, will the Dwarven factions be united following the events of the Broken Realms? Will the Daughters of Cain maybe be expanded and have a few more kind of sinister elf factions, all the cool old kind of dark elf stuff folded in with them maybe? So yeah, I think that's a good thing. If you've seen our Stormcast Eternals video, it gives you loads of options for battle line and different themed armies, and that is something that you see in this book as well. Now obviously there's quite a few new units that have been added, and we get full lore breakdowns for all of them, explaining who the Kruleboyz are and all the different characters, because it is essentially a new army. And you know, obviously one way they could have gone was just a standalone book for the Kruleboyz. So I'm quite happy that they fold them into the Orruk Warclans. As we'll see in the rules later on, you can still run a big Waaagh and you still get the benefit of some of these different abilities in that. So yeah, again, lots of different options in building your army, which is really nice to see. As we always get with these books, we get a nice colour section with pictures of all the miniatures, including some of the gorgeous new ones that are on the way soon. There's a couple of kits, both the Killbow and the Maya Brute Troggoth, that are up for pre-order today. They're really nice, but there's a load more kits coming out alongside these. So I've got a feeling we're going to have a few weeks of releases for both the Kruleboyz and the Stormcast. So yeah, exciting times. In addition to the miniature showcase, we also get a painting guide as well. Again, this reuses some of the stuff from the old Orruk book, but obviously there's a lot of new Kruleboyz units in here as well. It's a nice way of getting your army together quickly. And obviously there's lots of videos and stuff out there at the moment, but it's nice to have that information within the Battletome as well for people maybe new to the game. And this could be, you know, the Battletome and a kit of models could be the first thing that they get, so it's nice having all that information contained within. So moving on to the rules themselves, we get a bit of a shift in the Orruk Warclans. So previously you could pick to have your Ironjawz, your Bonesplitterz, or your big Waaagh. Now obviously we get the Kruleboyz folded into the mix with that as well, and your big Waaagh army gets some of the allegiance abilities from the component units as well, which is a nice way of mixing it up. So we'll start with the Kruleboyz. They get their own expanded allegiance abilities that are built on from the ones that we saw in the Dominion launch box. So when you pick a Kruleboyz army, you get to pick one of 3 different flavours of Kruleboy: the Grinning Blades, the Big Yellows and the Skullbugs. We'll have a look at those in a little bit later on in the book, but essentially they change the way your army work, and will even really shift around your battle line and the type of armour that you use. For example, big yellows, you're probably going to go for an entirely ranged army that pelts its foes with the various bow weapons that you've got, where the grinning blades are a bit more cunning. You can't see them turn one because they're hidden in the mist, so there's some fun stuff there, but we'll see those as we get onto them. The other main kind of allegiance ability that we've got for the Kruleboyz are venom encrusted weapons. We saw this in the Dominion rules, and basically what it means is that if you make a hit with a 6, the attack does a number of mortal wounds equal to the weapon's damage characteristic, and the sequence ends. There are ways of making that better as well with some of the casters and stuff in there. So yeah, really nice one, especially if you go for some of those higher damage weapons, like the big bow they can take. If you get lucky with a shot with that, you could do an awful lot of damage. So yeah, pretty cool. They also get a Kruleboy Waaagh. This is something we didn't have in Dominion. Once per battle in the combat phase, when you pick a friendly Kruleboy general to fight, you can say they're calling a Waaagh, and then 2 other friendly units within 18 inches who haven't fought can then fight in the order of your choice. So similar to the Lumineth ability, where you get to pick 2 units before your opponent, this essentially is once per game 3 units. So again, on that key charge, you can get the going. Now obviously it's just Kruleboyz units, so yeah, I guess the idea is that you tailor these sub-factions around just that flavour of Orruk, but if you've got a mixture of them all, you'd probably go for the big Waaagh. Dirty tricks is something that you can do. So after the players receive their starting command points, but before the start of the first turn, you can pick one of the following dirty tricks to employ. So Nosy Racket, subtract 1 from wound rolls for attacks made by enemy units in the first battle round, again making it harder for your guys to get killed. Lethal Surprise, you roll 3 dice. For each 4+, you can pick a different terrain feature or a different objective that is not wholly within enemy territory and secretly note it down. The first time any enemy unit finishes a move within an inch of it, on a 2+, they take d6 mortal wounds. So essentially they lay booby traps, which is pretty fun. Disappearing Act, roll 3 dice. For each 4+, you can pick a different enemy unit on the battlefield that has not been reinforced. Then roll a dice for each unit you picked. If the roll is greater than the unit's wound characteristic, your opponent must remove that unit from the battlefield and set it up as a reserve unit. At the end of your opponent's first movement phase, they must set up that unit on the battlefield wholly within their territory and more than 9 inches away from enemy units. So yeah, really good way of forcing your opponent's decent units off the board, battle line units off the board, making the odds stack more in your favour that first battle round. Pretty nice one. Or you can have Covered in Mud, roll 3 dice. For each 4+, pick a friendly unit that is not a hero or monster. While that unit is in cover, it is not visible to enemy units. And this is something we see with quite a few of the Kruleboyz rules. Their ability to kind of like slink away into the shadows and not be seen. So yeah, it's really fun that. I quite like the booby traps that you can stick on objectives and dare your opponent to go towards them. But so again, subtract 1 from wound rolls in the first battle round is also really good as well. Arguably, if you're a Grinning Blades, you probably don't want to get attacked the first turn because you're not visible anyway. But yeah, lots of cool options. We also get a choice of command traits as well. So something that has gone from these new Battletomes are fixed command abilities, fixed command traits, fixed artifacts of power for each of your kind of like sub-factions. This is now turned into a enhancement list where you can pick and choose your own, which is pretty cool. So for the command traits, you can retreat and charge in the same turn. If the general's on the battlefield at the start of the first battle round, before determining the first turn, you can pick a friendly Kruleboyz unit and set it up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away. So if you wanted to, you could put that big monster just 9 inches away from your opponent's battle lines and go at it. And then finally, if the general is within 3 inches of another friendly unit, roll a dice. Before you allocate a wound or mortal wound, instead of making a ward roll on a 4+, you can allocate it to them. So essentially a kind of passing wounds off your general onto the friendly unit. So again, pretty cool. We also get 4 artifacts for the Kruleboyz. So Eyebiter Ash, once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can say the bearer will hurl the Eyebiter Ash at a foe. If you do, pick one enemy unit within 3 inches of the bearer and roll a dice. On a 1 to 2 nothing happens, on a 3 to 4 subtract 1 from hit rolls, and on a 5 plus subtract 1 from hit rolls for the rest of the battle. So yeah, pretty cool. Mork's Eye Pebble, once per battle at the start of the shooting phase, you can say they'll rub their Mork's Eye Pebble. If you do, the bearer and all friendly units within 12 inches of the bearer have a ward save of 5 plus from the start of the next phase. That's a really nice one again. Once per battle though. Likewise, the Beast Killer Slop. Once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy monster within 3 inches of the bearer and roll a dice. On a 1 nothing happens. On a 2 to 5, that monster suffers d6 mortal wounds. On a 6, the monster suffers 2d6 mortal wounds. And then the Spiker Seeds, once per battle, after an enemy unit finishes a charge move within 6 inches of the bearer, you can say the bearer will throw their Spiker Seeds. If you do so, roll a dice for each model in that enemy unit. For each 5 plus, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So some nice fun stuff they can have there. So likewise with the Ironjawz, again, you can pick a sub-faction for them, which we'll see in a little bit. Their ability is very similar to what we've had in previous books. So Ironjawz Waaagh, when you call a Waaagh, you add 1 to charge rolls for friendly Ironjawz units and improve the rend by 1. Mighty Destroyers is very similar. Command ability basically allows them to make extra moves, charges, that kind of stuff. And then Smashing and Bashing. If any enemy units were destroyed by an attack made by a unit, you can pick a friendly unit that's not forced and immediately fight with them. So basically you can daisy chain these together. So, you know, if your units take out a unit, you can fight with another one. If they take out a unit, you can fight with another one. Something that's been popular in the Ironjawz since the first Ironjawz book, I think that was in. And it's good to see it's existed here. Like with the Kruleboyz, they also get their own command traits. So Hulking Brute, after they make a charge, on a 2 plus they deal d3 mortal wounds. Mega Bossy, they can do the Mighty Destroyers command even if it's been issued by another friendly model, so you can do your 2 Mighty Destroyer moves. Mighty Waaagh Leader, if the general calls an Ironjawz Waaagh, you can re-roll the charge rolls for friendly Ironjawz within 12 inches. And then your wizards can have touched by the Waaagh. Before attempting to cast a spell with the general, you must pick a unit within 6 inches of them. That unit suffers d3 mortal wounds, but you can add the number of mortal wounds to the casting roll for the spell. If you pick the general to suffer the mortal wounds and they are slain by one of those wounds, the spell is not successfully cast. Makes sense. And the Master of the Weird, you can pick an extra spell. So they're pretty cool. Like with the Kruleboyz, you also get some unique artefacts as well. The Armour of Gork, which gives you a 6 plus ward save, lets you add 1 to hit rolls, however you minus 2 from the movement. The Destroyer, pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. Once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can add 3 to the damage characteristic until the end of the phase. Again, a bit spiky, but you know, if you've got it on a mega boss who's potentially got a load of attacks by the end of the game, and then just go bananas with him with 3 damage. And then the Boss Skewer, add 1 to the bravery of friendly Ironjawz units while they're wholly within 18 inches, and subtract 1 from enemy units while they're within 12 inches. And then finally we get the Bonesplitterz. Again, like with the other guys, there are 3 different sub-factions they can pick from. They have Warpaint, which gives them a ward save of 6 plus. They can pick a Waaagh, and when they do so it improves the ward save to a 4 plus instead of a 6 plus. They have the Spirit of Gork and Walker. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a melee weapon, with a Bonesplitterz unit that has 5 or more models, if it's a 6 it scores 2 hits on the unit instead of 1, so exploding 6s on your bigger units basically. And then Tireless Trackers. After deployment, but before the first battle round begins, half of your Bonesplitterz units can move up to 5 inches. If both players can move it, they roll off and the winner determines the order. So yeah, pretty fun. And again, like the other guys, they do get their own command traits as well. So Killer Instinct, if the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a melee weapon is a 6, the attack causes 1 mortal wound in addition to any other damage. Great Hunter, if the general is part of your army, when you use the Tireless Trackers battle trait, you can move them 8 inches instead of 5. Monster Killer, in the combat phase after the general has fought for the first time that phase, they can fight for a second time if they're within 3 inches of an enemy monster. And then your Wizards, you can pick 1 extra spell from the Law of the Savage Beast, and when you issue a command, it can be received by a friendly unit within 24 inches instead of 18. So yeah, pretty nice. And then again we get some artefacts. The Doc Juice, once per battle in your hero phase you can heal D6 wounds allocated to the bearer. The Lucky Bone, once per phase you can reroll either one hit or one wound roll for an attack made by the bearer, or reroll one save roll. Glow into 2s, add 2 to their ward rolls, which is pretty cool. So with a Waaagh you can get up to a 2+ ward save, which is crazy good. And then for your wizards, you can have Mork's Bony Bits. You can add 1 to casting, dispelling and unbinding rolls for the bearer, for each enemy monster within 24 inches of the bearer. And then Beast Lore Glyphs. Once per battle, at the start of your hero phase, you can pick one spell from the Lore of Savage Beast that the bearer does not know and has not attempted to cast during the battle. They can attempt to cast it in addition to any other spells they can cast. So basically they can cast one extra spell out of the Lore in addition to the ones that they already know. So that's pretty fun. Now, if you rather take a selection of orcs from different factions, you can instead take the big Waaagh allegiance. You get some of the abilities, not all of them, but you get some of the abilities from those different factions. So you get the Venom Encrusted Weapons, you get Mighty Destroyers, and you get the War Paint. In addition to that, you get, here we go, a heroic action that you can carry out with a friendly Orruk Warclan hero. Instead of picking one from the table in the core rules, if you do so, roll a dice. If the roll is greater than the number of the current battle round, you receive a number of war points equal to the current battle round. For example, in the third battle round, on a roll of 4+, you receive 3. Now that's really cool. One of the problems in early turns is that you're not necessarily going to use a heroic action because there's nothing really on the table that appeals. This way the Urruks can do that to get some early war points to start building that tally up. Now speaking of those, this is a resource that you accrue by doing different things, and it has changed a little bit from the previous incarnation of this. So at the start of your hero phase, if your general's alive you get d6. At the start of your hero phase, if there's any war chanted, you get another 2. If there's any Bonesplitterz wizards, you get 1. And then in your charge phase, for each friendly Orruk that finishes a charge move, you get 1. And at the end of the combat phase, for each friendly Orruk that's within 3 inches of an enemy unit, you get 1. I believe you used to get bonus ones based on the number of Orruks. That's gone now. It's all about getting your units charging in, and then at the end of the turn still being in combat with stuff to generate the most of them. And basically as you accrue those, you get different abilities. So for 8 you get Zoggum, add 1 to run rolls. 10 you get him, add 1 to charge rolls. Zap him gives you +1 to casting, dispelling and unbinding. 16 gives you +1 to hit rolls for attacks made with friendly Orruk units. 20 is +1 to wound rolls. And then finally Waaagh. 24, at the end of the combat phase, you can say you'll release the power of the Waaagh. If you do, add 1 to the attack's characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Orruk units for the rest of the phase. At the end of the phase you lose all the points that you've accrued so far. So yeah, I mean +1 to hit, +1 to wound, really good. So I don't know when you'd unleash that and get an extra attack on everything. You're probably better off with the bonus to hit and wound personally, but yeah, pretty cool, and it's not too difficult to get those up as well, especially with your way of getting them in the hero phase with the heroic action, and by just getting your lads stuck in, which is what they want to do anyway. So we also get a list of unique mount traits as well. Again, these are all enhancements that you can have. So Toughen, monster only. Basically, unless it's taken half wounds, you use the top line of its table, which is cool. Fasten, once per battle in your hero phase, he can make a normal move. Meh. Meanen, monster only. When you carry out the Stomp Monstrous Rampage, it does d6 mortal wounds on a 2+ instead of d3. Really cool. Loudon, when you carry out the Roar, it can pick all enemy units within 3 inches instead of 1. That's very good. Weirden, the model has a 4+ ward save against mortal wounds caused by spells and endless spells. Yeah, not too bad. And Smellian, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons. That target the model if it has not made a charge move in the same turn. So if people charge you, or it's stuck in combat a few turns, it's -1 to hit. So yeah, nice assortment of different stuff there. We then get a number of different spell laws based around the different tribes of Urruks as well. So the Kruleboyz get the Black Pit, which is a super good spell. Goes off from the 7, has a range of 12. If successfully cast, pick an enemy unit within range. Roll a dice for each model in the unit. For each 6, and each other roll greater than their save characteristic, they suffer a mortal wound. So Stormcast, stuff with the high wounds, high save characteristics, sorry, you're going to cause a load of mortal wounds there. Choking Mist goes off on a 7 with a range of 24. You pick a point on the battlefield. All units within 6 inches of that point are affected by the Choking Mist. You subtract 1 from their attack's characteristic and they cannot run. So again, pretty nice. Sneaky Miasma goes off on a 6. If successfully cast, pick 1 friendly Kruleboyz monster. That monster can make a normal move. So nice way of getting your things up the battlefield. And then Nasty Hex has a casting value of 7 and a range of 12. If successfully cast, pick an enemy unit within range invisible to the caster. Until the end of the turn, ward rolls cannot be made for models in that unit. This is a super good one for shutting down those ward saves and potentially giving those uber tooled up heroes a bit of a hard time. So yeah, really like that one. Then the Ironjawz get their own. The Foot of Gork has a range of 18. You pick an enemy unit that suffers d6 mortal wounds, and on a 4+, they keep taking mortal wounds until the target's destroyed or that sequence stops. Mighty Headbutt goes off on a 5 with a range of 16. Pick an enemy hero, they suffer a mortal wound. If they're a wizard, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. The Great Big Hand of Gork goes off on a 7. You pick a friendly Orruk unit within 12 inches. Remove the unit and then place it anywhere on the battlefield outside of 9 inches. You cannot move in the following movement phase. And then Bash 'em Lads is a spell that has a casting value of 8. If successfully cast, until your next hero phase, you can add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by friendly Ironjawz units that are wholly within 16 inches of the caster. Then finally we've got the Beastsplitters, Law of the Savage Beast. The Squiggly Curse has a casting value of 6. You pick an enemy hero within 3 inches, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. If they're slain, you add 1 to your casting rolls for the rest of the battle. Pretty cool. The Glowy Green Tusks has a casting value of 5 and a range of 18. If successfully cast, pick 1 friendly Bonesplitterz unit within range invisible to the caster. Until the start of your next hero phase, improve the rend of your weapons by 2. That's pretty cool. For the unit's mount, sorry. And then Orruk Warclans Warcry is a spell that has a casting value of 7 and a range of 12. Pick an enemy unit within range invisible. The unit can only be picked to fight at the end of that phase. So basically you can force those units to fight last. And then Power of the Werebore goes off on a 6 with a range of 24. You pick a Bonesplitterz unit within range. Until your next hero phase, add 1 to run and charge rolls to the unit and add 1 to hit rolls made. But they cannot shoot. So yeah, it's a nice assortment of spells. I really like the Kruleboyz ones. Yeah, I think I'd try and get all of those in there. Being able to move your monsters in the hero phase is cool. Shutting down ward saves is really good. Yeah, there's some really fun stuff there. We then get on to the various sub-tribes. For the Kruleboyz, we've got the Grinning Blades. In the first battle round, models are not visible if they're more than 12 inches away, which is really good for protecting you from that turn 1 shooting, keep you guys safe to get into position, and then strike out from turn 2. Big Yellers add 3 to the range of their weapons, and they can re-roll a hit roll of 1 every time they shoot, which is cool. And then the Skull Bugs basically hang around like lots of bugs and insects and stuff, so it's a bit unsettling to the enemies. When they're picked to fight, you roll a d6, the enemy rolls a d6. On a 6+, they subtract 1 to hit. If there's a Skull Bugs monster within 3 inches, they add 2 to that roll, so essentially on a 4+, they're -1 to hit. So that again makes your guys a little bit more defensive in making them harder to hit. For the Ironjawz, we've got the Iron Sons. They get a command ability, alright, get them. You can use this at the end of the enemy charge phase, and it allows them to make a charge, which is pretty cool. The Bloodtooths, at the end of the combat phase, friendly Gore Grunters that are within 3 inches can make a Paladin move. In addition, those that fought but are not within 3 inches can make a normal move or attempt to charge. So again, get them all in range. And Choppers, when you use the Violent Fury ability of a War Chanter, you can pick up to 3 different units in any combination instead of 1. Pretty fun. And then for the Bonesplitterz, we get the Bone Grins. Add 1 to the attack's characteristic of missile weapons. For the Icebone, if an unmodified wound roll for an attack made with a melee weapon is a 6, it causes a number of mortal wounds equal to the damage characteristic. And then the Drakfoot, ward saves cannot be made for wounds and mortal wounds caused by attacks made by friendly Drakfoot units. So essentially your entire army, you cannot take ward saves against them, so that's really fun. A lot of these different subclans as well unlock different battle line options as well, giving you a load of options for how to build your force. So now we come to the part of 3rd edition that we really enjoy, Path to Glory. So this is a way of playing narrative games that are linked together with a load of cool abilities to add a bit of flavour to your games. Your units level up, your force grows over the battle. And we've got some really cool stuff in this book that lets you do some really cool things with that. So when you assemble your army, you can of course just pick it to be a single tribe. However, you can gather a big Waaagh. So say if you've got a Kruleboyz force, depending on the tier of battle, you can actually add in some rival war clans. So you could add in some Ironjawz units, for example. And as the tier of battle goes up, the number of rival units increases as well. Basically represents that as your army is gaining notoriety, more and more of these different tribes gather together to join you. And then before a battle, you can spend a glory point for each rival war clan to call a big Waaagh, and basically unlocks a lot of the kind of allegiance abilities for those sub factions and lets you use them within the battle. So it's like a better version of a big Waaagh basically, which is cool. Another mechanic that the Orruks get as well is ransacking territories. So there's a few territories that they can get over the course of the campaign that they only really activate once they've ransacked it. Orcs go around smashing things, and if they capture a Dwarven mine, well, they're not going to get access to it until they've bashed it up a bit. So they get a special ability that lets them do that. There's a special quest that they can go on in order to ransack those territories. If you've seen our Stormcast Eternals review as well, they get 2 quests here that unlock new kind of showpiece battles as well. So Tornado of Destruction, where basically they go in bashing and smashing and destroying some stuff, or Monster Hunter, where they're just out for a laugh killing monsters. So really fun stuff. We also get some new veteran abilities as well for you to upgrade your units with. So speaking of the territories, these are the 61 to 66 position on the chart. And all of these really you use when you ransack them. You unlock the kind of benefit of them, and then you get rid of them. Some of them do have some passive abilities that tick on before you ransack them as well. So for example, the Realm Gate, you get to put a Realm Gate within your territory, and you can use it to teleport across the battlefield, or you can just destroy it by doing the ransack mission and get 66 glory points, which again is a massive way of boosting your force. So Orcs are going to have an interesting decision where do they hang on to some of these territories, or do they just destroy them to get extra glory to build an even bigger Waaagh. So I think that's a fun thing and really suits the Orcs. Like with the Stormcast Eternals as well, your characters can now be upgraded. So for example, if you've got a kill boss with Stab Grot, he accrues 25 renown, you can pay 6 glory to make him into a killer boss on Gnash Tooth. And then, why not, once he's got to 30 renown, you can pay 8 glory and give him a Corpse Ripper Vulture to ride on. And equally, Mega Bosses can be upgraded to take a Mega Boss on Maw Crusher. So this is something really cool, because when we've been playing games of Path to Glory, generally speaking, we start with a 600 point force. So you're not going to get those big monsters in there, but it's nice that you can take your general on foot, and over the course of the kind of campaign, he can unlock new mounts and get kind of bigger and badder, which is really cool to see. And then, yeah, as mentioned earlier, we get 2 kind of like bespoke missions that the Orruks unlock for completing the quest. Again, this is something we've seen in the Stormcast book, and I hope it's something that we see kind of further throughout the other Battletomes as they're released. It's a really nice way of giving a bit of narrative flair and a bit of a showpiece game to unleash your Orruks on. For example, in this one, the Orruk force will pick their army, then their opponent has to have every 1 in 4 of their units a monster to do something fun, because basically the Orruks are hunting for monsters, so we'll tailor in a nice list to do a nice cool cinematic battle. Especially if you've got a big gaming group and you've got lots of different kind of forces that you can use to represent this. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of the forces out of the Crusade. So yeah, I think that's great fun, and I hope we see more of this kind of stuff, maybe in the Path to Glory supplements as well. We then get some Warscroll battalions, and what's changed here a little bit is that these no longer have points values. Now the bonuses that you get aren't as good as they used to be back in the previous books. They have been toned down a little and brought more in line with the core battalions. But this allows you to build a nice themed Orruk army based around these Warscroll battalions rather than using the core battalions. You get a more kind of characterful force and some abilities that, while not as good as the old ones, are still pretty cool and are balanced really well in Path to Glory games. So for example, the Kruleboyz Claw, at the start of the combat phase you can pick one unit from the battalion within 3 inches of enemy units. If you do so, you can pick one of the unit from the battalion that is within 3 inches of enemy units, and that unit fights at the start of the phase. So yeah, pretty cool. Basically it distracts them and allows somebody else to fight. And we see these for the Kruleboyz, the Ironjawz and the Bonesplitterz. So again, while you might not use them for match play, because you can't take them now, they still exist in some form for allow you to make a nice kind of characterful army for your Path to Glory. For match play, I know a lot of people were concerned about seeing grand strategies, battle tactics and core battalions added to Battletomes. Don't worry, it's not too over the top. Basically they give you different flavours and variants on the stuff that we see in the core book and in the General's Handbook as well. Similar to things that we've seen. So for example, Crumple Maul. You can only pick this grand strategy if your army includes Kragnos, Gorsprak or Gordrak. When the battle ends, you can complete the strategy if there's fewer than 3 enemy units on the battlefield. So it's a nice, fun, flavourful one, but you've got to work for it because you've got to take out the majority of your opponent's army. And likewise, the battle tactics are variations on the kind of stuff that we've seen in other ones, but tailored around the army. So wait for it, lads. You complete if you have 30 Waaagh points at the end of a turn. So obviously, if you've played a couple of games of match play, you normally have kind of an order that you'll go for some of the core battle tactics. This mixes up a little bit and adds some more kind of flavourful ones to theme your army, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. We also get a couple of new core battalions, nothing too over the top. One of them is Swift, so gets at the double or forward to victory free once per battle. One of them is a strategist, so they get an extra command point once per battle. And the final one is Slayers, letting them do an all-out attack or unleash hell. Again, there's specific units they have to take to unlock those. I think it's going to be the case that people will maybe use these to fill up some of the maybe spare units after picking a core battalion from the main book for an extra command ability, basically. So nothing too over the top, don't worry. There's no take this core battalion and all your guys are +1 to hit. Nothing like that. It's similar format to the stuff in the core book. So moving on to the Warscrolls themselves, I'm really going to focus on mostly the new units that have been added here. If there's any massive changes, I'll call them out on other ones, but just wanted to kind of call out the main stuff. Later on in the week, we'll probably have a look at how the army functions as a whole once we've managed to play some games with it. So obviously Kragnos is still in the book. He has gone up in points, but he's still pretty good. He still doesn't have a ward save, so he is a little bit vulnerable in that respect, but 2+ save, load of wounds, absolute monster, can destroy whatever he goes into, as we all know. Gobsprak's the new kind of named shaman character. Really, really cool model. I think this is going to be a popular choice. He's a wizard who can cast 2 spells. He's got a 6+ ward save. He's got a really cool ability where if he unbinds a spell, the caster suffers D3 mortal wounds, and if he unbinds it on a 10, they suffer D6 mortal wounds. Boosting that once per game. Once per battle he can try to unbind on 3d6 rather than 2d6, and obviously that will increase the chances of him blowing somebody's head up as well, which is really fun. He's got the Mouth of Mork ability. If he issues a redeploy ability to a Kruleboyz unit, you can re-roll the dice that determines the distance the unit can move, and if they unleash hell, you do not have to subtract 1 from the hit rolls. So that means all your really awesome shooting stuff, especially in the kind of shooty Kruleboyz sub-faction, no -1 to hit when you give that command, so really, really, really cool. And then finally gets a unique spell, Summon Boggy Mists. I think we've seen this on some of the other Kruleboyz units. Basically, it increases all Kruleboyz charge rolls by 1 and decreases enemy charges by 1 as well. So yeah, really nice caster. Stick some of those Kruleboyz spells on him, like the one that shuts down ward saves, and yeah, you can pretty much use him to allow Kragnos or the killer boss, or maybe something on a Maw Crusher, freeing them up to absolutely chew through some of those more traditionally resistant heroes. So yeah, you know, taking out Gotrek's ward save and then absolutely rampaging through him. Yeah, some fun stuff you can do with him. The other build of that model is the killer boss. This is another variation of the killer boss. There's about 4 now. He has the same ability where if a Kruleboyz unit fails a battle shock within 3, only 1 model is lost. They can also use a command ability more than once in the same phase. It still counts as issuing the command, but it lets you basically double up on your commands, which is pretty fun. Profile wise, he's pretty nice. 4 attacks with his sticker, 3s and 3s, -1 rend 2 damage. 5 attacks with the beak, 4s and 3s, -1 rend 2 damage. And then finally the sting is a single attack, hits on a 3, wounds on a 2, -1 rend and d6 damage. So the only thing that the Kruleboyz really suffer with across the board is low rend. I guess you would factor in the fact that any of those hits of 6s, that damage will go through. So not really a beat stick, but he's pretty nice. He's more useful for his kind of like command abilities and mobility. Again, a lot of the units from Dominion return pretty much intact with the same profile, so there's not some massive changes there. The Gut Rippers have been given a new weapon option. So the Wicked Hacker, it wounds on a 3 rather than a 4. Unfortunately, it's only got a 1-inch range, so arguably I think I prefer the stickers. Yes, they only wound on 4s, but you're going to get both ranks fighting, so that's probably my go-to choice for them. There's now an option for a Standard Bearer and a Musician as well. So the Standard Bearer increases their bravery by 1. The Musician lets them add 1 to charge rolls, and then you can take a Champion as well, where you can add 1 to their attacks characteristic. Now obviously the models in the Dominion box don't have those options. I'm sure you can easily convert those though to get those benefits. One of the new monsters is a named variation of the Scum Drek. This is a big horrific beastie that has a bit of an interesting mechanic where basically he bets a unit of Hobgrots that they're not going to be the first unit to die. You pick a unit that you want to die, your own unit. If that unit dies first in the game, you automatically get a free triumph. Really, really fun rule. I guess the easiest way to do it would be to take 2 units of Hobgrots, one being the Hobgrots that have taken the bet, and then the other unit being your sacrificial ones. That does kind of put an inherent 80 points kind of increase on him though, because you really want to take that first unit of Hobgrots to unlock that ability. Other than that, he's pretty cool, pretty nice profile. The bite can do D3 plus 4 damage on its top tier and wounds on a 2+. Again, low rend across the board, but quite a number of attacks, and this thing will be really good in the fight. Next, we've got the kind of generic version of that monster. Slightly worse profile. I think there's only 5 points difference, so I would probably take this guy over the generic one. Yeah, again, to get the full benefit of the other one, you need to take the unit of Hobgrots as well, which is something you got to bear in mind. Both of them look really nice as well for having a variety of different looking units. And then they've got Snatch and Grab. Once per battle at the end of the combat phase, you pick an enemy model that has a wounds characteristic of 7 or less and does not have a mount. If you roll over their wounds characteristic on 2d6, it is slain. So again, a really nice one for taking out those kind of like support casters and stuff. Just wander up and stick them in your bag, which is really fun. Another new monster, I say monster, it hasn't got the monster keyword. Another new creature for the Kruleboyz is the Marsh Crawler Sloggoth. Okay, combat profile, 12 wounds. He's got a similar ability to the Snatcher boss, but the other way around. So at the end of the combat phase, you pick a model within 2 inches and roll a dice. If you double their wounds characteristic, they're slain. So again, 2-3 wound elite infantry take out with that, or just use it to delete, I don't know, the champion in a unit of Lumineth so they can no longer cast on a 2+. taking out banners and all those annoying models within units. Because you pick the model itself, you can take those out, so that's pretty fun. It also regenerates D3 wounds in the hero phase on a 4+. And then finally you add one to hit rolls to melee weapons for friendly units wholly within 18. So I think it's about 150 points. It's not too expensive, but it's quite nice to have moving up the battlefield, giving your units a +1 to hit. And it's not locked into Kruleboyz or anything, so you could use it in a big Waaagh to give some of your Orruk units +1 to hit, which is cool. So a lot of these units we've seen in Dominion, but what is new is the Beast Skewer Kill Bow. So this is the big bow. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's only got 5 wounds and a 5+ save, so it's fairly vulnerable. A single shot on its top tier hits on a 2, wounds on a 3, and has -2 rend. However, to determine the damage of the weapon, you roll a number of dice equal to the wounds characteristic of the target unit, and for each 5+, you add a point of damage to it. +2, up to a maximum of 12. So if you pick a Mega Gargan, you're probably reliably going to get, potentially these 12 damage. And if you roll the 6 to hit with that initial shot, that's just 12 flat mortal wounds going through. So I can see people taking the chance of taking a couple of these and praying for that 6 to try and just auto kill some stuff early on in the game. So yeah, really fun one. Works really well with the tribe that allows those re-rolls as well, an extra range. Next we come to the old units. The Maw Crushers have had a bit of a switch. You'll notice that their save has gone down by 1, but if you take the shield option, you increase their save by 1 back up to 3. So there is now kind of a point in taking the Rip-Tooth Fist to buff that back up again. They have got a lot more wounds than they used to have. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Again, combos quite well with some of the other things that we've seen in there. So if you take the named Shaman on a Vulture and use that to shut down the ward saves of a unit, these will go right through them. I think some of the damage and attacks have been shifted around a little bit, but no massive changes. Generally, they're still the same as they used to be. As they kill things, they get more attacks. Yeah, they've come down in points as well. You can easily do 3 Maw Crushers, Gordrak, and 2 Mega Bosses on Maw Crushers, and 3 units of Brutes, I think is a legal 2,000 point army that I made. That would be really, really nasty and go through stuff. Again, for a lot of the old stuff, there's not massive changes. There's a few shifts here or there. What I will call out is Orruk Brutes. They are now very, very good. Enemy models with a wounds characteristic of 1 that are within 3 inches of this unit cannot control objectives. So you can now use them to go in and essentially just steal objectives off 1 wound models, which is crazy good. When you're fighting big things as well, you add 1 to hit rolls for units that have got 4 or more wounds. So really like Orruk Brutes. I think they're going to be really good. Like I say, 3 Maw Crushers, 3 units of Brutes. Use the Maw Crushers to do the work, and then essentially send the Brutes in to steal objectives off people. I think that'd be really fun. And then yeah, we won't go into all these profiles, but there's a few little tweaks. Some of the attacks have been moved around a little bit. A couple of the abilities have been switched out a little bit. So yeah, they're not going to be a million miles away from what you previously used, but what was previously +1 attacks, maybe +1 hit. A few of those have shifted a tiny bit, nothing massive though. So yeah, don't worry. I think the Savage Orc Boys have had a bit of a shift as well in the number of attacks they've got. I think it's just been flattened down across the profile. So a lot of the random damage that we used to have on stuff as well has been brought down. So like the Big Stabber has now got a damage of 2. Makes it a bit more reliable and gets rid of that swinginess. So yeah, fun book. Fun book. I mean, I really like the Kruleboyz stuff, and that's probably what I'll be building. But there's definitely options for every flavour of Orruk tribe now, which is really fun. Like with the Stormcast book as well, you get an awful lot of battle line options. So base, Gut Rippers, Uruk Boys, Orruk Brutes and Savage Orcs are all battle line. And then depending on what tribe that you pick, you can unlock Man-Skewer Bolt Boys if you take the Big Yellow's army, meaning that you can do your entire ranged army, which will be terrifying. Gore Grunters are unlocked in the Bloodtooths. Savage Boar Boys in an Ice Bone, Orruk Arrow Boys in a Bone Grins, and Orruk Moor Boys in a Drakfoot army. Generally speaking, across the entire army, most things have gone down in points. The only thing that have really gone up are the Savage units, which is odd, because arguably they're maybe the weaker ones, but they have all got those ward saves. But yeah, everything else has pretty much gone down. Kragnos, like I said earlier, has gone up. He is now 720 points, but your Megaboss and Warcrusher is 480. Gordrax 560. So yeah, there's loads of room to play with a load of monsters and stuff. So yeah, really, really cool. So like I say, I've got a full write-up on the website where we go into a bit more detail on the Orruk Warclans book. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. We are planning on doing a battle next Saturday where the Stormcast will take on the Orruk Warclans. So yeah, make sure you subscribe if you want to see that. If you've not seen our Stormcast Eternals review, that is also up on YouTube and over on spruesandbrews.com as well. So yeah, big thanks to Ever for Games Workshop for sending us a free copy of the book to do a review with. I hope you've enjoyed this. We have a lot more content that goes up on the website. We have painting streams, we have live battles, we have reviews and all that kind of fun stuff. So until next time, I hope you have a good weekend and we'll see you soon.